What if Hollywood's most enduring kisses were chosen by the critic who felt every frame? Roger Ebert's private list of vintage romances charts hearts still beating in silver nitrate. Each film pulses with longing, sacrifice, or laughter, proving curtains once rose like dawn. Lean in, feel the flicker, and rediscover love stories that time refused to dim. Snow blankets, revolution-torn Russia, muting cannon fire but amplifying heartbeats. Ebert called David Lean's epic slow and at times weighty, yet breathtaking whenever Zhivago and Lara step into frost-rimmed fairy tale vistas. Poet-physician Yuri Zhivago aches between loyal Tanya and luminous Lara. Balalaika strings turn each glance into prophecy. The abandoned dacha, windows etched with ice lace, made Ebert catch his breath at the beauty, arguing that spectacle and intimacy can coexist. Politics become mere backdrop, as trains crawl across whitened steppes and lovers steal moments from history. For Ebert, the romance survives because it treats passion like a stubborn candle in Siberian winds, flickering, never extinguished. Viewers leave convinced that some affairs echo louder than revolutions, haunting snowdrifts long after footprints fade. Jets snap, sharks whirl, and Romeo and Juliet surge onto New York tenements in jerky bursts of color and brass. Roger Ebert celebrated the musical's liberal sentiments, arguing its urgent choreography turns political plea into pulsing courtship. Tony and Maria fall in love under basketball court floodlights, singing Tonight while laundry flutters like doves. An image, Ebert said, made their passion touchingly innocent beside modern violence. The Rumble's knife flash shatters their dream, yet the final rooftop reprise of Somewhere convinces audiences that even shattered romance can concede hope. Ebert believes the film endures because it lets young love critique the world that dooms it, offering viewers both catharsis and a challenge. Each finger-snapped beat still dares us to dance past hate. Moon River drifts over Manhattan rooftops as Holly Golightly slips from party to party, hiding fragility beneath gamine chic. Ebert's sight hails the film as an adult fairy tale in which two drifters discover that love, like diamonds, shines brightest in daylight honesty. He admired Hepburn's vulnerability, watching how novelist neighbor Paul Varjak coaxes the real woman from behind her dark glasses. Holly searches storefront windows for a place where nothing bad can happen. Yet it is in a rainy alley, cat clinging and mascara running, where she finally recognizes home. Ebert called that soaked embrace proof that romance means trading glamorous escape routes for imperfect companionship. Long after the cab ride ends, viewers still hum the tune and hope their own runaway hearts find someone who will whistle it back. Billy Wilder slips corporate America under a magnifying glass and finds heartbreak beating in the cubicles. C.C. Bud Baxter advances by loaning his lonely midtown flat to philandering bosses, but the promotion tastes sour once he falls for elevator operator Fran Kubelik. Every Christmas wreath and empty martini glass underscores what Roger Ebert called the film's melancholy gulf between those with someone to go home to and those without. He praised Wilder's knack for sardonic, satiric comedy that has sadness at its center, noting how New York's shortest winter days echo Bud's shrinking self-respect. When Fran wakes in Bud's rumpled bed and whispers, "Shut up and deal," Ebert argued, it proves romance can blossom only once both lovers discard the lies of ladder-climbing society. Their closing card game smiles feel warmer than any office holiday bonus. Roger Ebert called Vertigo the fullest expression of Hitchcock's obsessions, a ghost-haunted inquiry into whether we love people or the dreams. Retired detective Scotty Ferguson tries to recreate lost Madeline in another woman's body, sculpting hair, dress, and motion until longing curdles into possession. AFI's Passion List ranks the film number 18, acknowledging that romance can be frightening when desire eclipses reality. Ebert wrote that the climactic bell tower cry is a wounded lover's howl, anguish for a woman who never existed and for the real one standing before him. In Vertigo, roses smell of formaldehyde, and yet viewers drown willingly, hypnotized by Bernard Herrmann's spiral score and the terrible beauty of wanting too much. Roger Ebert called Vertigo the fullest expression of Hitchcock's obsessions, a ghost-haunted inquiry into whether we love people or the dreams.
Retired detective Scotty Ferguson tries to recreate lost Madeline in another woman's body, sculpting hair, dress, and motion until longing curdles into possession. AFI's Passion List ranks the film number 18, acknowledging that romance can be frightening when desire eclipses reality. Ebert wrote that the climactic bell tower cry is a wounded lover's howl, anguish for a woman who never existed and for the real one standing before him. In Vertigo, roses smell of formaldehyde, and yet viewers drown willingly, hypnotized by Bernard Herrmann's spiral score and the terrible beauty of wanting too much.
Ebert called this tear-soaked remake shamelessly romantic and meant it as a compliment. Cary Grant's debonair playboy and Deborah Kerr's warm-hearted singer pledged to meet atop the Empire State Building, a promise so intoxicating it later fueled Sleepless in Seattle. Ebert admired the film's courage to lean into sentiment, soaring strings, painterly sunsets, and that devastating final scene where a forgotten shawl reveals everything. Director Leo McCarey frames love as destiny, thwarted by timing and pride, then redeemed by empathy. When Grant whispers, "If you can paint, I can walk," audiences dissolve. And Ebert argued such open-hearted melodrama survives because sincerity never goes out of style. Watching, we're reminded that the biggest risk isn't missing a rendezvous, it's refusing to believe in one.
Venetian canals glitter like liquid desire in David Lean's bittersweet postcard to lonely souls. Middle-aged Ohio Secretary Jane Hudson arrives with only a camera and half-buried hope. One accidental tumble into a canal drops her literally into the arms of antique dealer Renato. Roger Ebert praised Lean's model of craftsmanship, admiring how precise cutting turns every gondola glide into a heartbeat pause. Critics still single out Hepburn's tear-rimmed gaze at the sunset's rosy wash over San Marco, calling it Venice's most seductive advertisement. Ebert loved that the romance refuses fairy tale endings. Jane must choose between fleeting passion and her own hard-won independence. When she waves goodbye from the train window, the whistle sounds like a sigh, proof that some holidays rewrite lives even after the postcards fade.
Roger Ebert called George Cukor's version the indelible Garland vehicle, arguing no remake eclipses its raw, romantic power. Judy Garland's wide-eyed Esther falls for James Mason's fading matinee idol Norman. Together, they trade spotlights and sacrifices under Hollywood's blazing Klieg lights. Every note of The Man That Got Away throbs with longing, while Mason's final gesture turns devotion into heartbreak that legends are built on. Cukor frames their rise and fall as a grand valentine to loving someone more than yourself, and Ebert loved how that bittersweet truth burns long after the curtain drops. Princess Anne's single, carefree day in Rome feels like bottled sunshine, a Vespa-whirring swirl of gelato, riverbanks, and first love. Roger Ebert often returned to this film when discussing Audrey Hepburn's vulnerability and the way Gregory Peck's quiet gallantry lets it bloom without possessiveness. He praised how the story turns a fairy tale upside down. True romance demands freedom, not a crown, and credited the famous scooter ride for inspiring countless tourists to chase their own holiday hearts. That bittersweet dawn farewell, framed by Roman columns, shows love choosing memory over permanence. And Ebert argued that the ache is what makes the movie endure. Viewers leave convinced that a single perfect day can outweigh a lifetime of palatial protocol, and they secretly hope Anne and Joe still smile when they think of each other. Gene Kelly's tap splashes across puddles feel like meteor showers of joy, but Roger Ebert insisted the musical's marrow is romance, artists rescuing one another as Hollywood lurches into sound. Silent-era matinee idol Don Lockwood and chorus girl Kathy Selden fall in love while teaching the movies to speak, proving that creative partnership can double as courtship. AFI's 100 Movies list vaults the film into the top 5, cementing its status as America's most beloved screen valentine. Ebert adored how the title number shares a private emotion with a public street, turning raindrops into confetti for anyone who's ever twirled on their way home from a first kiss. Even after the curtain drops, audiences keep humming because love, like melody, refuses to stay indoors. Roger Ebert called John Huston's Jungle Adventure an ideal family film whose box office snub baffled him, noting audiences applauded its finale in his own neighborhood cinema. Prime missionary Rose Sayer and gin-soaked steamboat captain Charlie Allnut embarked on a leech-infested river to torpedo a German gunboat, bickering until adversity distills respect into affection. Amid rapids and engineering, Charlie's crack laugh and Rose's hymn-humming transformed the rickety vessel into what Ebert deemed a floating marriage license. Critics later hailed the film as delightful, different, always interesting, crediting Huston's on-location grit for the romance's authentic sweat and splinters. When the pair surface after capsizing and realize they have survived together, audiences cheer not the victory over enemy guns, but the victory of two battered souls daring to say "I do" amid crocodiles.
Tell the following story in a fast, fun, warm style, as if you are talking to a group of people listening to Top Movies to Watch podcast. Note that all sentences in parentheses are for clarification of how you should react. You must do exactly what I note, but not repeat all sentences in parentheses. Max Opels' swirling camera traces a lifetime of unrequited devotion as Viennese schoolgirl Lisa adores, loses, and still cherishes concert pianist Stefan. In a tribute, Ebert staffers recalled how the critic watched this film over and over, calling it perhaps the most romantic movie he knew. Ebert's site later listed it among his personal great films favorites, cementing its legend. Opel stages love like a waltz, tracking shots glide through candlelit foyers, snowy streets, and the fateful front door letter slot where Lisa's confession finally lands. AFI nominated the film for its 100 Passions roster, honoring a romance defined not by union, but by memory's indestructible echo. When dawn breaks and Stefan whispers Lisa's name for the first and last time, the screen itself seems to sigh, and viewers discover tears they never felt fall.
Alfred Hitchcock weaponizes champagne bubbles and uranium dust as ex-party girl Alicia Huberman infiltrates a Nazi clan, guided and desired by government agent Devlin. Ebert called it the most elegant expression of Hitchcock's style, noting how the towering crane shot from ballroom ceiling to wine cellar key crystallizes tension and longing in a single glide. Romance here is espionage's most dangerous cover. Every toast tastes of betrayal. Every kiss masks a lie. AFI ranks the film among America's 100 greatest love stories, proof that danger and devotion can tango without missing a beat. When Devlin finally whisks a poisoned Alicia into the foggy dawn, viewers exhale, only to realize their knuckles still ache from gripping the armrest.
Steam-hazed platforms, borrowed minutes, and two respectable strangers who never meant to fall in love. David Lean's wartime melodrama turned adultery into poetry. Ebert's site hails it as the archetype of the extramarital romance because it lets two adults who know what is happening to them treasure feelings they can never keep. He admired its frank acceptance that passion can be shared, precious, and true, even when society refuses it a future. Celia Johnson's hushed voiceover and Trevor Howard's yearning glances make every stolen cup of tea ache like eternity. The lover's final non-farewell, broken by a chatty acquaintance, hurts precisely because it is so ordinary. In Ebert's view, that muted agony is romance stripped of fantasy, love measured not by kisses, but by the courage to walk away with dignity intact and hearts forever bruised. Howard Hawks pairs Humphrey Bogart's sardonic skipper Harry with Lauren Bacall's slinky chanteuse Slim in war-torn Martinique. Ebert marveled at their sizzling chemistry. The whistle line still ranks among cinema's most seductive moments. Bacall's feline grace, he wrote, made the romance distinctive and touching precisely because you can see the young actress stretching to match Bogart's seasoned cool. Amid resistance, intrigue, and smoky jazz, Hawks lets glances do the heavy lifting. One match flare, one playful nickname, and audiences forget there's a war outside. Their love feels dangerous, improvised, irresistibly adult.
Here's Looking at You, Kid still melts granite hearts, but Ebert said the film's power lies in its sacrifice, two people in love who renounce it for a higher purpose. In a later essay, he called it simply the movie, marveling at how it leaps decades to become the secret favorite of every new generation. Bogart's cynical Rick and Bergman's luminous Ilsa make duty look heroic and heartbreak noble. Their parting proves love's truest measure is what it yields, not what it keeps. Each revisit reveals new shadings. Ebert noted
noted that the second viewing is more emotional than the first because every Paris flashback already throbs inside the viewer. Casablanca's fog-draped runway doesn't promise happily ever after. It promises something grander, a world where romance and righteousness can share a single, unforgettable goodbye.
Roger Ebert placed Irving Rapper's Woman's Picture among his rare 4-star romances for letting love become liberation rather than possession. Bette Davis's Charlotte Vale begins as a browbeaten Boston spinster, blooms under psychiatrist Claude Rains' care, then meets Paul Henride's gentle married architect on a Caribbean cruise. Their liaison remains chaste, yet the famous double cigarette scene, Henride writes both, offers one to Davis, still crackles with coded intimacy. Ebert admired how Charlotte's final choice to have the stars instead of the moon turned self-worth into the ultimate romantic gesture, proving that real passion sometimes means nurturing a child and a memory, not wearing a ring. The result is a wartime anthem for women who needed permission to steer their own hearts.
George Cukor's Screwball Jewel turns remarriage into an emotional high-wire act. Socialite Tracy Lord juggles ex-husband C.K. Dexter Haven and cynical reporter Macaulay Connor, discovering that perfection is less attractive than empathy. Ebert singled out Stewart's Oscar-winning drunk dial scene as romantic truth wrapped in comic timing. Criterion's essay calls the film a finely pretty world where wit masks real vulnerability. Vogue's recent rewatch gushes that Hepburn's shimmering gown and Grant's sly entrances still feel as fizzy as uncorked champagne. In Ebert's view, the climactic wedding switch proves that true romance isn't choosing who you love, but learning how, with laughter, honesty, and just a splash of pool water. The result is a 112-minute reminder that second chances can sparkle brighter than first impressions.
Ebert called this Civil War epic a towering landmark whose romance dwarfs its battlefields. Scarlett O'Hara and Rhett Butler spar across plantations, burning cities, and 4 hours of technicolor longing, turning lust and survival into the same heartbeat. Ebert praised Scarlett as the free-spirited modern woman the 1930s needed, noting that her hunger for land, money, and Rhett made her the century's most complex heroine. AFI ranks the film the #2 screen romance ever made, just behind Casablanca. Whether viewers thrill or recoil at its lost cause nostalgia, they still feel the sting when Rhett walks into the misty dawn. Love here is a gamble, and sometimes the house wins. Tomorrow may be another day, but Hollywood has never stopped chasing this movie's thunderous heartbeat.
William Wyler distills Emily Bronte's stormy novel into a single windswept obsession between orphaned Heathcliff and manor-born Cathy. Ebert, citing Wyler's grand, full-throated romanticism, praised how Greg Toland's deep-focus photography makes the Yorkshire moors feel as alive and as doomed as the lovers. The film truncates the book's second generation, stopping at Cathy's death, so every bitter glance and jagged kiss feels like the last drop before the glass shatters. Wyler's choice to let Cathy's ghost beckon Heathcliff across the snow convinced Ebert that romance can be terrifying, precisely because it never finds earthly peace. The Academy Award for Toland's camera work and a 2007 National Film Registry spot confirmed the film's dark spell. Viewers leave believing love can out-howl any storm, even if it kills you. Natalie Wood and debuting Warren Beatty ignite Elia Kazan's tender-to-the-touch tragedy of teenage passion throttled by 1920s morals. Ebert praised its raw emotional honesty, noting how sexual repression turns first love into a near-mythic ache that lingers for decades. Deanie's breakdown at the waterfall and Bud's quiet resignation show romance at its most ecstatic and destructive, a duality that landed the film on AFI's Top 100 Love Stories. The Wordsworth-inspired title reminds viewers that even broken hearts can cherish the splendor of having loved it all. Frank Capra's Screwball road trip still crackles like freshly popped champagne. Ebert's contributors call it the ultimate romantic comedy, celebrating how heiress Ellie and roguish reporter Peter trade barbs until barbs become devotion. The famous Walls of Jericho blanket, trembling between separate beds, remains one of cinema's sexiest acts of restraint. Ebert loved how the film's Depression-era backdrop lends their bus seat flirtations real stakes, hunger, class divides, and the thrill of dunking donuts together. By the time Ellie bolts from her own wedding, the audience understands that romance can be playful, stubborn, and profoundly egalitarian. Capra lets us believe that two screw-loose souls hitchhiking toward New York might hitch their lives together, and that laughter is often the shortest route to love.
Charlie Chaplin's little tramp sells his last rags to fund a blind flower girl's eye surgery, and Roger Ebert called the result the purest expression of cinema's power to make us weep and laugh in the same heartbeat. Working silently 3 years into the talkie era, Chaplin turns every pratfall into devotion, boxing matches for rent money, a sidewalk dive for a dropped flower. When the girl finally sees and recognizes the tramp by touch, the whispered, "Yes, I can see now," lands like fireworks in a midnight chapel. AFI ranks the film number 10 on its 100 passions list, proof that romance needs no dialogue to speak volumes. Ebert argued that its final close-up, Chaplin biting back tears, is cinema's most tender question. Will you still love me when you know who I really am? 90-plus years later, the answer is still yes.
Budapest may be frigid in December, but Ernst Lubitsch's stationery shop crackles with secret longing. Alfred Kralik and Clara Novak bicker across the counter by day while baring their souls as anonymous pen pals by night, a premise Ebert adored for its romantic pen pal ingenuity that lets love bloom in plain sight yet stay deliciously hidden. The film's gentle humor, Christmas glow, and working-class hopes lend the romance a fragile sincerity. Two lonely hearts write the truth because they can't speak it. When the final gift-wrapped revelation comes, the audience, like the characters, realizes tenderness was waiting amid the receipts all along. From moon-drenched canals to whispering Viennese salons, these 25 classics prove Roger Ebert's credo. Movies teach us how to feel, then dare us to feel more. If any title stirred your heart, share the moment in comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep love rolling when the projector fades.